let's get to the Bernie part, which was the most appalling of this. Let's get to that. So he says, this is the same kind of blind fury that drives so many Trump followers, and some leftist leaders are as willing as Trump to pour fuel on the partisan fire. When the administration began locking up the children of undocumented immigrants, truly an outrage, Congresswoman Maxine Waters said protesters should harass cabinet members whenever they go out in public. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with her on a lot, but I think they should. Short of violence, these are public servants. They should have to answer to the public. Is that so radical? I don't think so. As long as you're not physically violent with people, hey, you sign up to be a public servant, hey, you sell out your constituents pretty much every day for donors, yeah, you're not welcome to your little cocoon where you don't get confronted. Those days are over because more people are awoke. Now, let's move on to Bernie. Here's what else the new Democratic Party is about. Promoting impractical proposals with little analysis or detail. Senator Bernie Sanders advocates breaking up the big banks, but can't answer basic questions about his plan. That's not true. Nor has he offered any realistic way to pay for his grandiose ideas, which include Medicare for all, free tuition at public universities, and a federal jobs guarantee. No, he has offered ways to pay for it. You just don't like it because it doesn't fit with your Democratic consultants and keep the money flowing industrial complex. Yet these plans, the leftist version of build the wall and make Mexico pay for it, have been endorsed by leading Democratic presidential aspirants. Okay, so let's get this straight. Because you've already seen the Washington Post, even though the story didn't even get to Bernie Sanders until like 5 or 6 paragraphs in, tried to frame it as Bernie Sanders is the equivalent of Donald Trump. You see that? The story is not only about Bernie Sanders, but they made it seem like Bernie Sanders is the equivalent of Donald Trump. And to him, Trump trying to build a wall so that Mexicans can't get into the country. I mean, it's a wall of bigotry. That's not for security purposes, that wall. That's not for security purposes. That is to play into fascists. That is to play into anti-Mexican sentiment, anti-Muslim sentiment, and basically play into right-wing fascism and authoritarianism. So you're telling me a wall is comparable to trying to is the wall that is extreme. So basically you're saying that Medicare for all is the same level of extremism as a wall to make sure Mexicans can't or other immigrants can't come into the country? You're telling me that free public college is extremism on the level of a fortress? Like the Washington Post actually has this guy writing columns. CNN, I believe, has him on as a contributor. This is the thought process of our media, of our pundits, of our political aides, and of our politicians. And they are really doing this to frame progressives and dominant public opinion as extreme. And they are also, they did this a little bit in 2016, but you start to see that they're trying to paint Bernie Sanders as being okay with mobs or being okay with riots, because that is how they are going to stir up the older neoliberal establishment vote to come out, because it ain't going to be Hillary Clinton, I don't think, against Bernie Sanders. It's the same formula, only double down and triple down. Sway Ocean, FYI, I have paid for 8 people to go to college. Wow, that's great. Were they your children? Some people down the block? Either way, that's really good. If you are interested, in contributing to the GoFundMe, I eventually want to have children, and I need to pay for them to go to college. But that's not exactly what the GoFundMe is for. The GoFundMe is so we can get back in the field. Get back in the field and cover the real news that no one else is covering. We're going to continue posting more clips from our trip in Dallas. And after this, I'm going to play you part of my interview with Botham Jean's attorney. MacArthur Louisant, Jordan, do you support a cost of living check for the working poor and middle class? MacArthur Louisant, I support universal basic income, which that is one of the stories that I would like to go in the field and cover, because there's been some experiments with universal basic income. I actually know some documentary filmmakers who got a grant that allowed them to give, I believe it was $1,500 to $2,000 to about 20 people, and follow them over a course of, I believe, 2 years. And that I would love to show some of that and how it changed their life. So I believe in universal basic income. And you know who just talked about universal basic income? It's so funny. After Obama leaves office, now he's for Medicare for all. And he also introduced the idea of universal basic income. If only this guy got elected president and was there for 8 years, right? Unbelievable.
Are you ready for a commercial break so I can do other stuff?
Yes. So, bottom line, I'm not going to read you the rest of this story because it's ridiculous. Jeff Bezos was shamed by Bernie Sanders. Jeff Bezos raised the minimum wage of Amazon, but let me tell you something. He might have not had a conference call with his editors at the Washington Post, but you better damn believe that the Washington Post knows that the Amazon owner, Jeff Bezos, who signs their checks, ain't happy with Bernard Sanders. And there is a very clear directive. Don't forget about Bernie. Write some columns about him, distort your reporting about him, and go after Bernie more than anyone else. That's why I just bought a subscription to the Washington Post, so you don't have to read it. And I'm going to keep track of it, because if Bernie Sanders runs again, we are not going to let the Washington Post, the New York Times, and these public relations servants for the establishment and the status quo, I'm getting it confused, distort and destroy the progressive movement and progressive campaigns. Not going to happen anymore. And I'm going to fight it. OTR Tucker, $5 in the super chat. Sung to the tune, I write the songs. You break the news that makes the establishment cry. Send me that song. Can't wait.